Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the masks that I was talking about. Let's say instead of having a blur, and as you can see, I got rid of everything else. I'm starting back with this clip here. I got rid of if I wanted to take this frame and let's say have part of it to be blurred to make it easier to see the text and part of it not. That's where the masking comes in. I used the pen tool to create a curve which was called mask to deform the type, but now we're going to make some closed shapes just to show how that whole process works. So let's say I want to keep the left part of the screen for the moment. Let's say the left part of the screen blurred and the right part of the screen clear. And I just want to blur this side because I want my text to be kind of stacked up on the left side of the screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm selecting my layer, and I'm going to come up to the pen tool, and I'm going to start. Oh, by the way, some of you may have been running into before using the pen tool and actually having it come up blue and actually making a shape layer and creating a new layer. That happens if you don't have another layer selected. So I'm going to delete this guy and then select this. So now the pen tool knows to put the mask on this particular layer instead of creating a shape layer by itself. We'll get into shape layers later. But now if I if I were to create just a shape, let's just say I want to come down here and I'm just going to create a very basic diagonal and close this, and you'll see that it immediately keeps what's inside the closed shape and eliminates everything else, and that's because of the alpha channel. If I come down to this little channel selector, lets you see the different channels, and the alpha channel, also known as a mat or a key depending on the industry you're working in, is the transparency channel. And if I click on this and come down to alpha, you'll see that it is showing me that fourth channel. Most CG now is red, green, blue, and alpha, and the alpha is the transparency channel. So generally now it can be different, depends on the program, but most of the time white is opaque or not transparent, and black is transparent, and then gray is semi-transparent in the middle. So what's happened when I created this mask, in fact, let me select this mask and just delete it again, select the whole mask. And this is the alpha channel, the transparency, the opacity channel. And now if I were to create a mask on this layer, just like I did before, and close it, you'll see that it immediately just chopped off. So this part becomes immediately transparent, and this part is still opaque. If I go back to my RGB, you'll see that, and since there's no other layers, this just goes to black. But if I were to duplicate, Control D, my layer, and since I've got this one open, I'm just going to drag this down. It really doesn't make any difference. But since I did a complete duplicate after I made the effect and have the blur on here, I'm going to turn off the blur, and on the masks, I'm just going to select the whole folder and just delete it. And so now I've got a case where you can see the blur in the part of this layer that again is, oh, by the way, on this button, if you hold the Alt key down and toggle it, it automatically toggles to the alpha channel. You can see this part is where the blur is, and this part is not blurred. And then I'm holding Alt down and clicking on this, and I'm going to unsolo this layer, and we've got this, even though it is kind of a hard line. And I'm also, if you grab these points, you can just sort of move them around. If you want to select all of them or group them, I usually go back to the selection mode. Then you can just pull a rectangle like that. Now you can move the whole mask around, like so. See, there's, but let's say I want more of a transition, more of a blending. For one, if you want to keep the mask selected but make it invisible because it's kind of blocking what's up on the screen, it's this icon right here, toggle mask and shape path. So if I turn that off, I've still got my edge here. You can see that's a pretty hard line when you got something that like this blur happening. So if I open up the mask folder under masks, and I've got just one mask right now, so mask 1. If I open that up, its properties, you've got the path if we're going to animate its shape, the feathering, the opacity of the mask. I can actually ramp that on and off like that. Plus, if I wanted to expand this out, kind of grow it out from where it started. I'm going to just type in 0 again. But I've also got feather. And if I start bringing the feather value up quite a lot, you see how the hard line is now fading because it's actually blurring the edge of the mask. If I come back up here now and I'm going to solo this and then Alt and click on that, you see the shape of the mask now because I've feathered it a huge amount. But this is HD, so you can see what happens when you feather it. You're actually blurring the edge of your mask. And now if I were to pop this back and unsolo this, see it's less of a that's where we started at 0. And let me turn the mask back on. I'm just going to select the whole thing and move this over so it's a little like right in the middle of the car there, and then turn it off. So you can see what we've got here. So now if I bring up the feather, so the car is becoming more visible, but that line between the blur and the opaque part is becoming much more obscured, and that's the feathering right here. That's the blurring of the edge. Alright, and let me toggle that back. Let me turn the mask back on, and I think for the moment what I'm going to do, let me select this. I just want this point. You can also click and shift or control like that. And I'm just going to move these two out a little bit so I have a little bit more room to work. The whole point with doing this is so I have a little bit more space. A little bit more space for my text over here. So let me pop this off, and I'm going to close this up, and I'm going to close this up. And if I actually just select the text button up here and click up here, it immediately creates a text layer. That's another way of going about it. And let me go ahead and start typing. But in this case, I'm going to hit enter and start a new line. And you can see that this is like now sitting in here. If I grab my text and bring it down, now I can read this. It's more legible over the blurred background, but for whatever reason, you may want to simulate like a windshield wiper or something like that. Whatever your imagination can come up with, but I'm just really showing the masks at the moment. But it does make this much more legible. By the way, if I go back into my text mode, now if I click over here, and select just the lower line, now any operation that I do is only going to happen on this bit of text here. I could change its color. See? Like so. So it's whatever is selected. I'm going to cancel that, put it back. But one thing I was going to try is I'm going to indent just to center this up if you want, or I just really am showing you that you can select ranges of text and adjust them over here. and it's only going to affect whatever you have selected. And that means going back to the text, the type tool, and coming down into your text session and just selecting what it is you want to change. Let's pop this back over like that. But anyway, and then when you're done, it's set up like that. That's also something under the text animate options, is something else that can be animated, moving it across like that. Anyway, one other last little thing about the masking, and so I'm going to actually turn off the text for the moment and come back over to the layer that does have my mask on it and turn the mask back on. You can have more than one mask on a layer also. You can actually have a lot of them, but they start interacting with each other, and what I mean by that is what I'm about to show you. I've got this mask here, and I'm going to click on the circle and actually create another mask, and then I'm just going to hold shift down to keep it as a circle, and you can see what's happening is that it's becoming blurred inside the circle. So now if I solo this and hold Alt down and look at my, see what's happened is it's created another mask, but inside the mask is white and outside is black. So that means I've got blur inside here now too. And so if I come back over here, I'm just going to select mask 2 and move it around. You can see if I wanted to blur, and yes, you could animate this across so it follows the car to obscure it if you wanted to. But right now, you can see I've just sort of got a blur window in here. If I come back over here, you don't see a whole lot happening. But what I'm thinking is I want to use this circle just to make the guy here not blurred. And to do that, I'm going to go back and solo this again, and let's look at our alpha channel. If you look at this property here on each mask, they're both set to add at the moment, meaning that it's adding to the ultimate mask, you know, the white. And if I were to move this over here, see, it just disappears because they're both, it's white on white. If I were to switch this to subtract, what's inside the mask, let me switch this back to subtract again. What's inside here goes to black, and if I were to move this now, I've now am creating a hole inside there, and if I were to turn off my solo, and now I'm just going to grab individual points and maybe pull this down like this and push this up like that, and again under the mask you want to feather it so it's like a soft edge. And now if we turn that off, now I've got this guy sort of zeroed in as a guy in focus in a blurred area, but with this area out here too. So there's an awful lot you can do with masks just by themselves. And if I were to turn the type back on, say, there's an awful lot you can do once you get into how the masks and the type and all that work. So let me fold all this up, and you can see it's 2 layers of the QuickTime movie, one with a blur and one without, and then some type on top of it. And that's it for this lesson. Talk to you soon.